recently switched from an iPhone to the S24 Ultra, and the experience was such a mixed bag that I decided to try downsizing from the S24 Ultra to the smallest, miniature-sized S24 for the next 30 days. And not just the regular S24, by the way, but the Exynos version of the S24. So I was prepared for an even bigger disappointment, given my experience of the S22 Exynos models from a couple of years ago. And to my shock, I've actually been really impressed. And it's not because this thing looks like an iPhone, it's really not. So today I want to continue this series we're doing and talk to you about why me, a self-confessed Apple fanboy, is really enjoying using the S24 over both an iPhone and the S24 Ultra. Truth be told, the regular S24 is just so much more comfortable to hold and use over the S24 Ultra on just a day-to-day basis. The smaller size means that you can comfortably hold it one-handed, and the rounded corners don't dig into your hands. And just the sheer light weight of the phone makes it an absolute dream to use. I found myself often holding this phone in one hand whilst also doing something else with that same one hand. Now, these things might sound really trivial, like being able to open a door or carry a bag whilst holding the phone, or just being able to throw your phone down onto the sofa, or rather couch, without feeling like you're launching a missile that might self-destruct on impact, like with a heavier iPhone or the S24 Ultra. It just feels like it's more of a Nokia 3210 that I can be a lot less careful with. In fact, this phone has fallen out of my pocket when getting out of my car far too many times to remember, but I've never once worried. Now, with that said, I did put a case on mine. Unfortunately, it's not a magnetic case from Magback, one of my favorite kind of case manufacturers. They just don't make them in the regular S24 size. But if you do want to protect your phone from bumps and scratches, then I will link to a few of my favorites down below. Now, if you watched my previous video on the S24 Ultra, you'll know that I didn't have the best experience with the software. Android Auto was buggy to the point that Spotify just refused to work. Custom notification sounds are disabled by default, and I experienced just a number of bugs overall, which just infuriated me over extended use. Now, past that problem with the review is that I legitimately locked away my iPhone 15 Pro Max for the duration of switching to the S24 Ultra. So when I experienced a bug like the one with Spotify that I hadn't experienced before on the iPhone, well, an Android phone. Why would you just work? When in actual fact, when it came to the Spotify issues on Android Auto, those same issues were apparently also happening on the iPhone due to a dodgy Spotify bug. And just generally speaking, there is only really one common software issue, or maybe it's a hardware issue, that I've come across on a daily basis with the S24, and that is with the NFC reader. It just doesn't work reliably. Through multiple times I try and use it every single day, it just doesn't work. About
60% of the time, it works every time.
Now, it doesn't help that the position of the NFC is somewhere in this mid-top kind of back section of the phone. So you kind of have to hold your phone out to find that sweet spot. Whereas with an iPhone, you can reliably just tap the end of your phone and it works every single time. With the S24, I've had moments where I've had a queue of people behind me and I'm sat there waving my phone like a wand on this on this sensor, trying to get it to register. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes I have to just commit to holding it still for 5 seconds. Sometimes I have to take it away and then put it back there and then it works.
That's what she said.
There is just no consistency, and it's definitely not an issue on the iPhone 15 Pro Max or any iPhone I've ever used, which just reliably and consistently just works. You just tap the top of the phone once and it's done. But with that issue aside, and just generally overall, I'm starting to really enjoy the S24 and just everything it has to offer. It's genuinely useful features like Call Assist, which transcribes calls into text and lets you type back text responses to the caller. Fantastic. Although 90% of the time, people calling me tend to hang up because it sounds like a robot.
Hi. I'm using a voice assistant to convert your voice to text and respond to you. That's what she said.
Maybe that's a UK issue we've got here. Being able to paste images or text with one tap, also really nice. Also, their AI translation features, incredibly useful for those of you who travel a lot. And just the overall ability to keep things as simple or as complicated as you want. Just yesterday, for example, I disappeared down this rabbit hole whilst looking up how I could watch video on my car's like display via Android Auto. And whilst I haven't had a chance to actually give it a try yet, it does look like it's possible. And that's the thing here, like with Android, almost anything is possible if you're willing to put the time into like scouring the internet for a solution. There's no Tim Apple walled garden here. You're free to do as you please. If you want stock or custom icons for every app on the phone, you can do that. You want to totally change the entire phone's launchers to something like Nova Launcher, you can do that too. Or you just keep One UI as it was, also totally fine. Do you want to customize the notifications right down to the sound that plays for every app and even individual categories of notifications within each app? You can do that. But for those who just want a regular phone that makes calls and just use apps downloading from the Play Store, it does that just as well. Now, the big surprise with this year's S24 is that for those of us outside of the US, the S24 and the S24 Plus got lumbered with the undeniably crappy Exynos 2400 chip. Or so I thought. Now, as someone who's used the Exynos variants of like the S22 and prior and hated them, who picked up the Snapdragon S23 and loved them, I really wasn't happy with their decision to move back to the Exynos chip here. But genuinely, I haven't seen a single issue, bug or glitch or slowdown during the last 30 days of daily driving this phone as my main daily drive phone. It's been as snappy as my S24 Ultra, as snappy as my iPhone 15 Pro Max. And unless you are like really pushing this phone with heavy gaming or doing benchmark tests, then you're likely not going to notice the difference between the device and their performance. Like, yes, it might run a little bit hotter, and yes, the battery might not be as good as the Snapdragon version of the same phone, but I am at least pleasantly surprised that in general terms of just day-to-day usage, it has been just fine. Now, do I wish they snapped with Snapdragon for all of the devices? Well, yeah, of course I do. I still don't like their decision to go like part Snapdragon and part Exynos this year, but at least it is not the dumpster fire that the S22 Exynos was. Now, sticking with the hardware, like I've said before, I like the smaller design. I don't miss having the S Pen whatsoever. I'm happy to lose that to save the space and have just an overall much smaller, lighter, and just more overall comfortable design. A design which, by the way, isn't too dissimilar from an iPhone. Like, I sometimes carry both of these phones in my pockets, and when I'm reaching in for either one of them, I still sometimes pull the wrong phone out. Even though they are in a case, they are like still rounded on the edges, they still feel like an iPhone, both of them do. And because I put my phones in cameras like first into my pockets, I can't then use the camera bumps, which of course you would be able to quickly recognize one from the other. Even if you put the phones face up on a table and the light just catches it where you can't see the obvious like dynamic island or the the pinhole camera, the S24 looks like it could be an iPhone. Now, the other thing that I thought I would miss from the S24 Ultra is the 5x telephoto camera. And I do miss having it, but what I will say is that most of the time, I haven't been disappointed with the regular S24. I have taken this phone and this camera everywhere with me, canoeing for Mother's Day, to my son's football games, to Barcelona for an event, and all of the photos and footage it captured was great. This is the part of the video where I'm going to tell you how you can win a brand new Pixel 8 Pro, Pixel Buds, and a Pixel Watch 2, whilst also telling you about the sponsor of this video, 1Password. Now, if you work across devices like Mac, PC, iPhone, Android, 1Password works across all of them. Now, I've been using a family account now for the last few years, and the number of times my wife forgets the password to her email account or Apple or Google logins, even her bank accounts. But with 1Password, I can store those passwords and share them with her, so she won't forget them. And if you have a family account, you can add up to 5 people. So you, your partner, your kids, maybe even your parents, so you can look after their security too. We are seeing more and more data breaches every single week. There was what's been called the mother of all data breaches in January of 2024, where 26 billion records were leaked. And honestly, at this stage, it is almost a 100% certainty that some of that leaked data is yours. Now, all you have to do is sign up to 1Password using one of my links down below, and that is literally it. You'll be in with a chance to win the bundle, and you'll get 50% off a year subscription to a proper password manager. Like, it costs less than $1 Starbucks every month. Then, once we hit 1,500 signups, together with 1Password, we're gonna pick a winner and get in touch with you. back to the video. Now, I'm not one to nitpick and pixel peep into photos to compare details, but I am someone who is kind of scared that as I get older, I'm gonna lose my memory. So capturing these things so that I can remember them like later on, that is what is important to me. And I honestly think it does a great job at that. Now, with that said, it also did a great job at totally missing this photo of my son winning his first trophy at a football game he played the other week. Now, I normally take a few photos just in case, something like this happened or someone blinked or like it missed focus on one of them. But it did this in both of the photos that I took in portrait mode. So yeah, it's a great camera most of the time. But of course, with kids, they're not gonna stay still long enough for you to check every photo you take. So kind of annoyed that it missed this one. It also did come out pretty blurry in a few shots that I took at a restaurant in Barcelona recently. Now, it wasn't very bright in there, which of course didn't help, but I would say that generally speaking with this camera and capture specifically movement in low light, it's not going to be very good compared to others. Even the S24 Ultra rather is better. By the way, if you're enjoying this video, I would really appreciate if you subscribed to the channel down below and leave a comment. There just seems to be this growing trend at the moment of YouTube channels buying views or subscribers to make themselves feel like they're doing better than everyone else. But everything this channel has become is basically because of you, like fantastic people who watch, engage in my content. So I just want to say a quick and very huge thank you to every single one of you who watches and engages every single week. Honestly, I really, really appreciate you and can't thank you enough for your support. And actually, if you ever want to hang out and just chat, I've got a Discord channel, link down below. It's open to anybody. You don't have to pay to get in or anything like that. So just feel free to hop in and we can have a chat. Continuing with the cameras now, video footage. Again, totally acceptable. Now I'm gonna throw up some clips now of videos I shot on both the front-facing and the rear-facing cameras. And I don't really have any complaints here. Again, not getting into details, not nitpicking things apart, but for someone who wants to capture memories whilst still in more than adequate quality, this is a great phone for you to capture those memories and you won't be disappointed. So hardware good, software good, cameras, all good. But there are some areas and features that, at least for me, personally, I don't find a use for. The majority of Galaxy AI features, whilst they're an impressive technological feat, in general day-to-day use, I just don't have much of a need for. I don't need to take photos and then use generative fill to move objects or fill in the edges. And I doubt that the majority of people buying this phone do either. I do think features like being able to live translate phone calls is a really, really nice feature for those obviously who use it. Now this year, of course, the big word at all of the tech conferences I'm going to has been, once again, AI. But honestly, I'm yet to see AI actually be anything more than a gimmick in most phones. Now, Honor recently showed off some interesting AI features at the Mobile World Congress, where the phone will then predict what you're going to do on the phone before you go and do it. It'll be able to open apps it knows you're about to open, and even use eye tracking technology, kind of similar to Apple's Vision Pro, to know which app you're looking at before it loads it up. I just can't wait for these kind of features, like actually useful features, to make their way into phones, as long, of course, as they actually work. I think it is the inevitable moment, though, when someone actually develops and puts AI into their voice assistant with access to everything on your phone. That will be the next major leap forward. I know we're kind of starting to get there with, Google and their Gemini side of things. That, or it will be the final leap forward before AI destroys the world as we know it.
I would like you to give me your passwords.
The area where Android tends to fall apart for me, though, is when it comes to things outside of just the phone. Watch, tablets, all the headphones, all that kind of stuff. Now, as far as the watch situation goes, most people will go for the Galaxy Watch 6 and be just fine. But as someone who is coming from an Apple Watch, I find the Galaxy Watch 6 really quite slow and the whole user interface feels quite clunky. So I'd almost committed myself to wearing an Apple Watch Ultra, regardless of whether I was on an iPhone or an Android phone, until I recently switched to a Garmin watch. Now, I won't go into it in detail, that's for another video, but I have been so impressed with the Garmin watches recently that I am considering switching solely to a Garmin watch. In fact, I'm having this debate in my head right now because there's only so many days that I can wear both an Apple Watch and a Garmin watch. Now, I've already stopped wearing my Whoop, my Aura Ring, my Ultra Human rings over just battery charging fatigue, so it is only a matter of time before I kind of commit to one of them. Now for headphones, I unfortunately drowned my Beats Fit Pro headphones, and considering I have a whole drawer full of alternatives, I really tried to switch. I tried the Bose Quiet Comfort Ultras, the Pixel Buds, the Galaxy Buds, but I ended up buying a second pair of Beats Fit Pros because they are literally the only headphones that stay in my ears. It must have like a weird ear shape or something. And recently, I picked up the Galaxy Tab S9, I think it's the S9 Ultra, and I took it with me to Barcelona, and I was that, weirdo on the plane holding this massive tablet in front of me during the whole plane journey, instead of just watching, something on my little tiny compact phone that would be much easier to carry around with me. But I loved every minute of it. I've actually come to really, really liking the Galaxy Tab S9 so much that I prefer using it over an iPad, and that's saying something.
You don't know the power of the dark side.
So I guess the question of all questions is, which phone do I stick with? I really loved the size of the S24. I really wanted the smaller iPhone this year. Damn, Apple and their marketing that made me buy the bigger one. I think I'm going to switch back to the S24 Ultra for maybe a little while longer. I'm actually learning to love the Android ecosystem and all it can do. iPhone, you're just a bit boring. This kind of feels like the 5 stages of grief. First it starts with denial. Fanboys. You must be stupid to use one of those. Then finally acceptance when you realise that actually both iPhone and Android are pretty great phones. I guess it just comes down to which one I prefer to use. I need to stop someone else, particularly on YouTube, telling me which phone I should be using. Welcome back to the channel. Today we are reviewing the latest and greatest iPhone 17 Pro Plus Max Ultra. And guys, trust me, this is the best phone I have ever used. 30 watts wide charging, incredible. Underscreen fingerprint reader and cameras. You might as well throw away your DSLR.